He's making his way through the AL East, one Rangers playoff win at a time. Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News back on the show. Zooming in from Baltimore, how's Camden Yards treating you so far, my friend?
That was nice. This is 4 ballparks in 2 weeks. It's been quite the road trip. So the Rangers have been on quite an odyssey, Jeff. But it's look, it beats the alternative, which has been the norm here, right? And that would be sitting at home right now.
That's right. I know the Rangers fans are anxious for Tuesday to get their team back home. It has been a long road trip. Just before we came on here, full transparency, we're taping this. You broke the news. Andrew Heaney will be the starter in Game 1 tomorrow. I think a lot of people, Evan, thought Dane Dunning would get the nod. Why Heaney?
The Orioles, the top of the Orioles lineup is full of left-handed and switch hitters, and I think the thinking is that you'd like to have Heaney go and face some of those guys. To max out his usage, if you can set it up so that he's going to come in and face lefties right off the bat, rather than potentially have somebody come in the 4th inning and clean up something. I think that's the thinking. All I know is, look, this team, the Orioles, are really good against both left-handed starters and right-handed starters. Their winning percentage against lefties this year, they faced a lot fewer lefties than they did righties. But they were a 679 winning team when they faced left-handed pitchers. So I don't know that the Rangers are making things any easier on themselves. But strategically speaking, I think they like the idea of being able to have some lefty-lefty matchups early, or to force Baltimore to potentially adjust its own lineup.
Yeah, I find it peculiar. I think Dunning's clearly been the better pitcher overall than Heaney. We'll see how it pans out in less than 24 hours here. Speaking of pitching, Evan, Max Scherzer, as we know, hurt September 12th. CY basically says season's probably over. And then today, as you saw at Camden Yards, Max throwing to live batters. Bruce Bochy calling it on the radio, a long shot that he starts against Baltimore. But here we are. I mean, what's your pulse about if he makes this ALDS roster, which I believe Wright is due in the morning? And if he does, how could the Rangers use him? Could it be potentially out of the bullpen?
Well, right now, look, as we tape this, I think 5 minutes ago, we just got the news about a Game 1 starter. So that lets you know that how uncertain the Rangers are about where exactly their starting rotation is. They know Jordan Montgomery goes Game 2, Nathan Eovaldi goes Game 3 in all likelihood. If you get to Game 4, they have no starter. So they may be scrambling to put something together. And maybe that is a situation where Max could go 30 or 45 pitches, give you a turn through the lineup. Particularly if you wanted to do another thing where you started, say, Martin Perez and had him face the Baltimore lefties early, and then brought Scherzer in for a trip through the lineup when you were facing more right-handers. He looked good to me. I think the question is whether or not he wakes up tomorrow morning and that shoulder is barking again. To throw 2 full innings and then went back out and warmed up to do a third, just basically kind of a typical 2 ups and 2 downs situation, certainly was encouraging. The big question on this, and he has said this over and over as he's thrown, is it's always how I recover. I can get through it fine. It's how I wake up the next day. And it's going to put the Rangers in a difficult spot. You know, if they put Scherzer on the active roster for the division series and he can't go, they still can replace him, but then he wouldn't be eligible for the division series or the AL championship series. He would be eligible again for the World Series. They don't put him on the roster. Obviously, the only way they could get him on the roster then would be as an injury replacement for somebody else who would potentially go down during that series. So the Rangers have some thinking to do, and they spent a lot of time today thinking about their starting pitcher, and they've got some thinking to do about their lineup. But Max has given them something to think about as well.
The Rangers just don't want you to sleep, do they, Evan? I mean, this is as down to the wire as it gets. You mentioned the lineup. One thing that's for certain, Evan, is that Evan Carter is on fire. The kid, 21 years old, has reached base 7 of 8 times so far in the playoffs, back to that 2 wins in Tampa. He's been batting 9th. You asked Bruce Bochy today, could he move up in the lineup? A lot of people wonder, should he be leading off? Bochy said maybe the 5th spot. Does it make sense? Do you think it's much of a real consideration at this point?
Yeah, I do. I mean, based on what Bochy said on his radio show today, and again, the way he asked the question, I think the Rangers really are considering where they could move him. The number 3 spot has been an absolute black hole for this team for the last month. It's been the worst number 3 spot in all of baseball. So that's the place that you would think makes some sense. But if you do that, Now you've got a left-hander in Corey Seager batting second and a left-hander in Evan Carter batting third. Do you make it easier on a Baltimore bullpen that's got a bunch of lefties in it that's also really good against left-handed hitters? So maybe you move Carter up to the 5th spot. You sandwich Seager and Carter around maybe Adolis Garcia and another right-handed hitter. Maybe that's one way you go about it. But I do think he's going to move up in the lineup. He's just hit too well to not take advantage of getting him a few more plate appearances.
Yeah, I think based off what Bochy, said today, it seems like the likelihood is there that Carter will move up. Doesn't get more juicy than this, Evan. Can't wait for it tomorrow. Thanks so much, and happy October baseball to you, my friend.
They're a mysterious team, Jeff. They've been mysterious all year. They're going to be mysterious right through the playoffs, but it's been enjoyable and fun, and we'll see where this takes us. I mean, we're potentially a week away from Rangers and Astros and the Armageddon that would come with that. So
wouldn't get juicier than that. Let's all hope for it. Evan, thanks for the time. Enjoy the weekend, man.
Thanks, man.